So let's dive right in. Number 12, Texas A&M at number 3, Florida. KenPom has this line, Florida -10, but we have seen some early openers. Florida -8.5, juiced at some sports books. Gators coming off of the upset loss at Georgia, and the Aggies have lost 3 in a row to your liking against Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vandy. You cashed that on Tuesday or Wednesday show. Shout out to you for that pick. I'll be on the Aggies here, but before we get the train started and before we have the YouTubers complaining, why haven't you given out a pick in 5 minutes? We're talking handicapping strategy. Everybody relax. If you want to skip forward, you're more than welcome to in this game breakdown. But Justin, I have a bone to pick with you. Because when I look at the resumes on shot quality of St. John's and Texas A&M, they're arguably pretty similar, yet you seem to have a gripe with A&M long-term. You have faded the Aggies over the last 3 games. So may I ask you what your prognosis here is with maybe the market catching up to Texas A&M with where shot quality is at?
Yeah, I mean, Texas A&M was above St. John's a couple weeks ago in KenPom, right? I think they were just flying a little bit too high. They had strung together 5 straight wins from the end of January: Oklahoma, South Carolina, Missouri, Georgia, and Arkansas. All right, we had the expected loss to Missouri by almost 20 points on the road. They were lucky to get that. And you beat a team like Missouri that has also massively climbed in the rankings in the last couple months. And everyone starts being like, maybe Texas A&M, all this. I mean, they subsist a little bit too much, like St. John's, on beating you on the things that shot quality doesn't really evaluate. We don't have rebound quality. We don't have turnover quality. It's hard to really understand that, and it's tough. But look, I was on Butler on that game and cashed that as well, and that was an expected shot quality loss for St. John's. They do those types of things, the 49 other things besides maybe shoot the rock inexplicably well to beat you. And Texas A&M subsists on that too. They can cut and they kick your ass at the rim, pardon my language, and the shot selection looks good and the rebounding looks great. But I mean, again, outside of those 2 losses to Kentucky and Alabama, and I guess Texas as well, they were absolutely flying. And there were just a couple losses in there. Shot quality expects them to have 6 more losses on the year. So even those losses that came home recently were all expected to be losses. And they were just a net of losses, including, Ohio State, Creighton, Wake Forest, Purdue, and then Oklahoma, Mississippi, Missouri. So it's 7 games and a net of 6. So actually that 7 is an overestimation because a couple of them were close, like Creighton, Oklahoma. But Missouri easily expected to be a loss. Mississippi easily expected to be a loss. Ohio State easily expected to be a loss. And I would imagine St. John's has those same types of things as well. And I'll pull up the data here because, I mean, look, they are very similar profiles. And I'm interested to see how they're going to do in the tournament because I think the defense for St. John's might be a little bit more legitimate, but they do have the same number of unexpected wins. So 7. But the thing is that St. John's does have 1 loss that was expected to be a win. So the net is technically a little lower. Nonetheless, which was Georgia, for anyone wondering. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I think there's plenty of reason to go against St. John's when you look at the schedule upcoming here in terms of the spread, and definitely that Marquette game on the road to end the season. If they clinch at home and they have that number 1 seed going into the tournament, I can see Marquette absolutely proving a point.
Revenge game.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if, maybe Kadari and RJ Lewis, surprise, sit because everything's all clinched up and they don't care and they're probably going to go try to win the Big East tournament. But that Marquette, they are going to do so well that they're going to render that Marquette game meaningless, which is really great for them. But yeah, I don't know. I think market is definitely, and I like the, who does a really good job with the visualization of all this is Bart Torvik. So shout out to him and what he has going over there with his rankings. And he has Texas A&M, 25th, which is pretty different than 21st for KenPom, and he did have them higher up. But still, this has been a little bit of a downswing. We've seen these downswings for them. So I think it's probably about time you probably consider this a local low. The Mississippi State game, the Vanderbilt game, probably lows. And I would expect them to, be in a decent spot to turn around here. What'd you say the number was opening at?
Around 8.5. So to that point, if you look short-term, long-term, I have those A&M Final Four futures, which I actually bought a little bit more of after the Vanderbilt loss because FanDuel bumped it up.
That's a good buy point. I mean, yeah, it's not going to get much. You're not going to get a better price if you're already in.
Yeah, right. And you're probably going to be a 3 or 4 seed regardless, unless they win out here down the stretch or lose out. Then they'll miss by a couple seeds or maybe gain a couple seeds, just depending on how this last week or so shakes out for the Aggies. But over the last month for Texas A&M, this is where we talk about 3-point variance, how it swings. Both teams, when I'm speaking to St. John's and the Aggies, both inconsistent from deep. But A&M, over the last month, a negative 8.5% net 3-point clip. So both ends of the floor taken into account there. That's third worst in the country, with the Aggies and the exception of Mississippi State and Illinois. We'll talk about Michigan, Illinois in a little bit. So my point is, A, buy low point. B, they're going to regress to the mean eventually. I'm not talking about to the Division I mean, but to their own mean, to around 31%. And Chaz Lanier is not going to hit every single wide open three like we saw last Saturday when Tennessee went to College Station and won that game. So I think we're both coming to a mean here with the inclination that the Aggies will bounce back eventually in regards to their market rating. And you go back to last year, just comparatively speaking as well, Alabama's Final Four run, they were shooting 38% from three through early February. So early college basketball season through about a little over half the midway point. Then they struggled. Then they got hot in March outside of the Grand Canyon game. So there are ebbs and flows in college basketball 3-point variance, even for a team that is as high variance as they come in Alabama. And while Texas A&M is not a good, not an above average 3-point shooting team, but if they shoot back to the mean, to their own mean, then I think the Aggies,
Tennessee especially, yeah.
Right. There is an opportunity for there to be valuable bets to make on this A&M team. So looking at this matchup in particular, Justin, outside of the 3-point shooting, the Aggies ball pressure matches up really well against Florida, because what does Florida want to do? Run dribble handoffs, run dribble drive action with Walter Clayton Jr. especially. A&M also elite on the glass at both ends of the floor, not just on the offensive glass. And Florida, 10th ranked offensive rebounding percentage across college basketball. So if A&M can dictate the tempo, if this is a stylistic game where the Gators are dominating the offensive glass and dominating in transition, and Florida bounces back off the Georgia loss, you're probably looking at a double-digit loss, and maybe the market isn't low enough on the Aggies despite a 3-game losing streak. But if the 3-point shooting comes around with Wade Taylor III, and it doesn't for Walter Clayton, and the Aggies' interior defense comes to play like the numbers show, I think they cover this line and keep this one close enough where maybe they win it outright.
I mean, I don't know about outright. I understand taking the points. My problem is, and I agree that you will get a model like KenPom to probably give A&M a little bit too much of a discredit. The problem is that the market might know that. And so it is at this point a little bit tuned. The Ken's at what, 10? Market's at 8.5. That's about enough of a shift, in my opinion, to really change things. What's really interesting here for Florida, they've only won 2 games all season where their opponents shot better than 35% from 3. And that one game, one of them was Virginia, who we know, probably can't do anything else. And the other one was their first game of the year against South Florida. which was, they probably just blitzed them inside in a very different type of. They were undefeated, until that Kentucky game where Kentucky shot 48%, and then Missouri shot 38%, and they did have a loss against Tennessee where Tennessee shot cold. That game was disgusting on both ends. But Georgia shot 56% from deep to beat this team, and shot quality had this as a massive, massive Florida win. So I'm a little concerned about that. I think it will take Texas A&M hitting some shots, but the problem is like, where are they going to do that from? They are not exactly a 3-point shooting team. They have won most of their games where they shoot above 40%. I would love if I could place bets on a team to win and them to shoot over 35%, because that would be a great bet against this on Texas A&M. I think it's highly correlated.
And then if they don't,
if they hit,
you get a refund.
Oh, maybe. But again, or just really good odds. Like I would take plus money on something like that, where it's like, okay, if they don't hit their shots and they win, I don't win, fine. But I think they're going to have to hit some shots. It's Florida, and maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't. There's plenty of reason to think they could have a plus shooting game. They have done well. This is on a road game. They aren't actually that bad shooting on the road. They had maybe one bad road shooting performance against. No, that was at home against Oklahoma. Again, the road shooting has been fine. The Kentucky game wasn't great, but I don't think you have all that much to worry about. I think you can probably assume this will be pretty close to the line, and it'll come down to who makes a couple big shots. But that means I don't really want it. I don't really see myself beating the minus 110 on this game, which is maybe a little surprising for people to hear. But again, we rate this a little bit differently in terms of how we see the SEC. Florida, 4th for Ken Pom, and Texas A&M 21st now, maybe getting 25th, 30th type rating in the market. We have Texas A&M down there around that 45th point, and Florida around 9. So we're a little lower on Florida too, and now the gap is definitely shortened on Texas A&M over these 3 losses. So unless we get to like 10, I don't think I'm even considering taking A&M. But if A&M. But if it gets to like 7, I'll probably look at Florida. So
caveat. Going back to my original point with the A&M bet, I agree. I do think this number will climb up. I think it will close closer to Ken Pom. I don't think if this line closes 7 and I don't have action on A&M before then, I definitely won't at 7. And the handle will be largely in favor of Florida, probably more than
I need to retract. I don't think I need to retract. My mental math was wrong. I don't think I'm touching A&M at 10. It would need to be more. But I definitely lean Florida. I think that's still very fair. You don't just flip all of a sudden.
Sure.
But it's definitely a less of a impotence to play Texas A&M now that essentially I've been correct for their last 3 games. So it's just less of an advantaged guess now.
My only thing with Florida's defense, especially from behind the arc, like you said, A&M is going to need to hit shots. Variance shows over the last month that they're due for it. Not a good 3-point shooting team, but they could shoot 30%, 31, 32% from 3 and cover this number. Florida per shot quality, allowing a 29% 3-point shooting clip, should be closer to 34. In conference, allowing 31% from 3, should be closer to 34. So the numbers align for A&M to regress in this game.
It's going to be right there. Like this is just probably one of these games where at this point in the year, I wouldn't be shocked if you go out and you grab yourself a same game parlay of plus 12 and minus 6 and just play it to be between 2 and 4 possessions. I think there's a very good chance it lands there.
Yeah. Fascinating game. That's why I wanted to spend the most time on it among any, because
I'm gonna see what I can get on that right now if we got openers. So I'll see if they give me. I don't think they're putting alts out yet, but maybe FanDuel.
Yeah, potentially FanDuel Friday afternoon, Friday night, depending on when you're watching this.